The muzzle flash strobed across Sergeant Maya Rodriguez's face as she drove 3 rounds straight into the center mass of the target, 50 meters out. The M4 carbine sat in her hands like it belonged there, but something was off. The rifle tugged left ever so slightly, and underneath the steady crack of gunfire, she could hear it. A faint rattle from inside the weapon. A rattle that had no business being there. Ceasefire. Weapons safe. The rangemaster's voice echoed over the shooting line at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. Maya lowered her rifle, flicked the safety on, and was already mentally cataloging the issues she'd felt. Years as an armorer, with the 75th Ranger Regiment now on temporary assignment, had trained her ear and her instincts to pick up on problems most soldiers never even noticed. The California sun pressed hard against her shoulders as she walked back from the line, weapons slung across her back. She'd been at Coronado for 3 weeks, part of a joint training exercise between Army Rangers and Navy SEALs. It was a grind, long hours, constant work, and a lot of late nights keeping weapons in fighting shape. The SEALs, she'd already learned, had a reputation for being rough on their gear. Behind her, a voice sliced through the chatter of the range, deep, commanding, impossible to ignore. She'd heard about Chief Petty Officer Jake Reaper Morrison before she even arrived, the kind of legend whose reputation moved faster than he did. 6 deployments, Silver Star, Bronze Star with Valor. Known to put a bullet through a quarter at 100 meters using iron sights. She turned to see him closing in, HK4 116-inch hand, his expression one of sharp curiosity. Morrison, at 32, looked like someone had carved him out of granite and then weathered him in combat zones. His jaw was set, hair cropped tight, and his gray eyes carried that 1,000-yard focus you only got from seeing too much and surviving it. "Yes, Chief?" Maya asked, instinctively straightening up even though he wasn't her commanding officer. "That was good shooting," he said, nodding toward her tight cluster of holes downrange. "Clean groupings, solid trigger control. But," his eyes narrowed slightly, "you were fighting your weapon there at the end, weren't you?" She blinked. Most people wouldn't have noticed. "Yes, Chief. The M4 they assigned me's got some issues. Needs a full teardown and inspection." "How can you tell?" His voice wasn't patronizing, there was genuine interest there. Rather than explain, Maya swung the rifle off her shoulder, popped the takedown pin, and began stripping it in one fluid motion. Hands moving fast, deliberate, efficient, guided entirely by muscle memory. "Buffer springs compressing unevenly," she said, holding up the part. "Probably took a hard hit at some point. Gas rings are worn explains the cycling issues. And..." She tilted the barrel toward the light. "Stress fractures on the barrel extension. This thing's fired more rounds than it should have without proper maintenance." Morrison just watched, silent, as she laid every component out in perfect order on the shooting mat, field stripped in under 30 seconds. "Jesus," he muttered. "Where'd you learn to do that?" "Marine Corps armorer for a dad," she said, starting to reassemble the rifle just as quickly. "Taught me when I was 8. By the time I enlisted, I could strip and rebuild NATO small arms blindfolded." She snapped the rifle back together like it had never been apart. "This one's done until we swap those parts." Morrison's respect was obvious. "What's your background?" 75th Rangers, 2nd Battalion, 6 years as an armorer, 4 deployments, currently babysitting you guys for this joint exercise." She glanced at his weapon. "And before you ask, yes, I can do the same with your HK 416, your M249, your M240, and whatever sidearm you've got on you." That pulled the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. "Is that a challenge, Sergeant?" "Just a fact, Chief." The NAB Coronado Armory smelled like gun oil, steel, and cleaning solvent, the closest thing to home Maya knew outside of her family's house. At 0500 hours, she was already elbow-deep in SEAL Team 7's arsenal while they ran morning PT. Born into the military lifestyle, Maya had spent her childhood bouncing from Camp Pendleton to Fort Bragg to bases overseas. Her father had served 22 years as a Marine armorer before going civilian contractor. Her mother had been a Navy corpsman. The military wasn't just her job, it was in her DNA. Her personnel file painted her as the model soldier, expert marksman, airborne qualified, Ranger tab, multiple MOS certifications. But what the file couldn't capture was her sixth sense for weapons. How she could diagnose an issue just by the sound of a cycling bolt or the feel of a trigger reset. That morning, she was checking the bolt face of an HK 416 when Morrison's footsteps approached. "Morning. Chief," she said without looking up. "Your team's weapons are ready if you want to sign off." "Actually," he said, I wanted to talk about something else. He pulled up maintenance logs on a tablet and handed it over. Since you've been here, our weapon malfunction rates dropped 60%. Maya skimmed the numbers, feeling a quiet rush of pride. Your last armorer was solid, she said, but standard protocols don't cut it for special ops. You guys put more rounds downrange, in harsher conditions, and break your gear down more often. That means more wear in certain spots, and you can't wait for the manual to tell you when to fix it. What kind of attention to detail are we talking about? He asked. She pointed at the rifle on her bench. HK 416 second are supposed to be cleaned every 500 rounds, but you're shooting match-grade ammo and sustained fire. That's more heat, more pressure. Wears gas rings, barrel extensions, and bolt faces faster. I check those after every training op, not after some arbitrary round count. Morrison nodded. He knew exactly what that meant. How'd you figure all this out? Morrison asked. Trial and error, Maya said. First deployment Afghanistan, 2018. Kunar province. Dust, heat, freezing nights. We had weapons go down at the worst possible moments. I started tweaking the maintenance schedule based on how and where we were using them. Never lost another weapon on that tour. She met his eyes. Good maintenance isn't just about function, Chief. It's about keeping people alive. That hit home. Morrison had spent enough time downrange to know when a weapon failed in combat, the consequences could be permanent. I have a proposition, he said. Next week we're running a 3-week combat simulation. Live fire, stress tests, the works. I want you as our dedicated armorer, not just fixing what breaks, but optimizing everything for the mission. Maya raised an eyebrow. What exactly does that include? Everything small arms related, he said. Maintenance, mods, ammo selection, even input on tactics if it affects weapons performance. You're Ranger qualified. You understand the field side, not just the bench. She felt her pulse pick up. An integrated role with a SEAL team wasn't just rare for an Army NCO, it was a career maker. I'll need my chain of command's approval. Already cleared it with Major Harrison, Morrison said with a small grin. He's seen your work. Thinks you're an asset for inter-service cooperation. Then I'm in, Maya said. Briefings at 1,400. I'll introduce you to the team. The briefing room was lined with photos of past missions, nothing classified, but enough to tell these guys had been everywhere. 8 SEALs sat waiting when Morrison brought her in. Gentlemen, Sergeant Maya Rodriguez, our armorer for the exercise. She scanned the faces. These weren't fresh recruits, they all carried the weight of years in the field. Morrison introduced them one by one. Danny Ghost, Sullivan Communications and secondary sniper. Auburn hair, sharp green eyes, lean build. 15 years in, 6 deployments. Heard good things, he said with a nod. Marcus Tank Washington demolitions and heavy weapons, built like his call sign suggested. Tony Razor Martinez medic and point man, wiry with quick assessing eyes. Brad, Brick Thompson breacher and CQC specialist, broad enough to block a doorway just by standing there. Alex Phantom, Kim Intel and drone operations. Younger, quiet, intense. Miguel Viper, Santos primary sniper. Long-range recon. Tall, patient, all precision. Finally, Senior Chief Rick Gunner Hayes, the assistant team leader and weapons sergeant. 18 years in, 8 deployments, handshake like a test you had to pass. Hayes studied her a moment. Jake says our weapons are running better since you got here. We appreciate competence. Thank you, Senior Chief. I've reviewed your operational needs, and I'm confident we can get your weapons running at peak performance. Morrison took over. The big screen lit up with maps of a desert training area. Operation Neptune's Fork. 3 weeks of simulated missions. Direct action, raids, recon, hostage rescue. 50 square miles of varied terrain. We'll set up multiple forward bases and run mission-specific loadouts. He glanced her way. Rodriguez will tailor our weapons to each mission instead of using one-size-fits-all setups. She stepped forward, connected her tablet, and brought up images. CQB missions, shorter barrels, red dot optics, drum mags for high-volume fire. She swiped to the next slide. Recon longer barrels, suppressors, variable scopes, standard mags for weight control. Precision match-grade rifles, tuned triggers, optimized ammo. Viper spoke up. What about ammo heat drift? My MK-11 loses accuracy after it warms up. Barrel harmonics, Maya said instantly. We'll test different loads until we find one that stays tight when the barrel's hot. Tank leaned back, impressed. We usually just grab what's in the armory and hope it works. Not anymore, Morrison said. We've got full access to special ops gear. Whatever she needs, she gets. For Maya, that was a game changer. Match-grade barrels, competition triggers, high-end optics. She could push their weapons to a level most units never touched. After the briefing, Hayes caught her at the door. You know what you're stepping into, Sergeant? I think so, Senior Chief. He shook his head slightly. You're not just support. If you're part of this team, we depend on you like we depend on each other. That means speaking up if something's wrong. Gear, tactics, whatever. She nodded. Understood. I don't plan on letting you down. Good, Hayes said, finally smiling. Jake's judgment is rarely wrong. The next week was a blur. Inspections, inventory, configuring HK4, 116 second, M249 second, M240 second, M11 second, Glocks, SIGs, customizing each one for its operator. When Ghost showed up for his slot, she replaced his worn bolt carrier group. You'd have had a catastrophic failure in another 1,000 rounds, she told him. Never would have caught it, Ghost admitted, cycling the action. Feels better than before. Polished your trigger pack too. Smoother pull, cleaner break, she said. They mapped out 3 configs for him, urban, mid-range, recon, so he could switch in under 10 minutes between missions. Tank's M249 was worse. Barrel wear so bad she showed him the metal fatigue lines near the chamber. This had maybe 500 rounds left before it went unsafe, she said. He doubted her before she'd overheard him talking with Brick, but seeing it up close changed that. Guess I owe you an apology. No need. Doubt's healthy, it means you care about your gear. I care too. By the time he left, they had 2 SAW configurations ready, standard and lightweight for when mobility mattered. Viper's MK11 needed a trigger rebuild so precise she measured tolerances under magnification. By the end, the pull was exactly 2 pounds, 0 creep, perfect reset. When the team gathered for their first joint equipment inspection, Morrison asked, Status? All weapons are mission optimized and field ready, she said. Environmental protections in place. I've prepped repair kits for every platform. Hayes gave a small approving nod. They didn't say it out loud, but Maya could feel it. She'd passed the first test. The desert sun was barely up when Maya rolled into the equipment staging area. Operation Neptune's Fork kicked off in less than 3 hours. Vehicles lined the lot, loaded down with gear, radios chirped with last-minute updates, and the air buzzed with that pre-mission focus. Her assigned vehicle was a modified Humvee half-workshop, half-mobile command cell. Every inch of the rear compartment had been customized with precision tools, spare parts, environmental controls, and labeled kits for each weapon system on the roster. She had a setup most armorers would kill for, and still, the stakes made her stomach coil tight. One by one, the SEALs arrived for final checks. Ghost slung his HK416 over one shoulder, running his hand down the stock like he was checking a racehorse. Feels perfect, he said after a few quick cycles of the action. Better than I've ever had it. Tank came next, the M249 draped across his massive frame. Took her out for a spin yesterday. The grouping's tighter than it's been in months. You're a wizard. Just a mechanic with high standards, Maya said, smiling faintly. Viper showed up last, cradling his MK11 like it was made of glass. Triggers breaking so clean it's like reading my mind. That was the best compliment she could have gotten. Morrison strode over, clipboard in hand. Status? All weapons ready for deployment. Dust covers prepped, heat tolerances checked, ammo loads matched to mission profile. He gave a curt nod. Outstanding. Load up, we move in 10. The convoy pushed into the Mojave, a dozen vehicles snaking along roads that gave way to dirt tracks, then nothing but sand and rock. By the time they hit the forward operating base, the temperature was already in the high 92nd. Maya set up her mobile workshop in the designated support area. Within an hour, she had tools laid out, comms checked, and every repair kit staged for rapid grab and go. At 1,100 hours, Morrison waved her into the mission briefing tent. First op, recon in Sector 7, he said, pointing to a map. We'll establish an observation post overlooking the objective. 48 hours, no resupply. Temps from 108-inch the day to 45 at night. Dust storm moving in tomorrow afternoon. She made notes temperature swings like that could mess with metal tolerances, optic seals, even magazine feed lips. Morrison's voice cut through her thoughts. Rodriguez monitor comms. If we hit an equipment snag, I want you in my ear with a fix inside 60 seconds. Copy, she said. The seals rolled out, and Maya took her seat at the comms desk in the command post. 6 hours passed without a hiccup, clean reports, steady movement. Then, at 2,100 hours, Base, this is 7-1. Ghost's voice had that clipped, don't waste my time tone. Intermittent feeding issues. Suspect magazine seating. Maya keyed her mic instantly. 7-1. Confirm you're using the blue-taped mags. Negative. Swapping now. Seconds later, issue resolved. Bolt cycling smooth. Appreciate it. She leaned back, allowing herself a single breath of satisfaction. One potential mission ender gone before it even got started. The next morning, Sector 7 op wrapped without another glitch. But by day 5, Murphy's Law came calling. The team was mid-raid on a simulated enemy compound when the radio came alive, urgent and loud. Base, this is 7-6. Multiple weapons down. My primary's jammed solid. Tank's saw is misfiring. Viper's scope is fogged inside. We're in contact. Maya's mind went into overdrive. 3 different systems, all failing at once, had to be environmental. Then she remembered the dust storm the night before. Even with covers, fine grit could slip in and wreck everything. She fired back. 7-6. Cover and break down your bolt group. Tank, run emergency barrel and gas system clear. Viper, swap to backup optic number 2 in your kit. She talked them through the fixes, step by step, while the sound of simulated gunfire and shouted commands bled through the radio. 20 minutes later, Morrison's voice came through. Technical support, this is 7 actual. All weapons back online. Mission continuing. Outstanding work. She closed her eyes for half a second, relief flooding through her, then got back to the screens. Word traveled fast after that. By day 8, Force Recon was asking for her help with a sniper rifle accuracy issue. By day 12, the Rangers wanted advice on machine gun reliability. Every fix she made, every problem she solved, tightened her reputation. But the real test was still coming. Day 15, the final and most complex scenario: hostage rescue. Multiple teams. Heavy simulated resistance. No room for error. 30 minutes into the op, a call tore across the net. Control, this is Alpha Team. Catastrophic failures. Breach charges dead. Primaries offline. Comms unstable. We're combat ineffective. Maya's gut dropped. This wasn't something she could fix from behind a desk. Control, this is technical support. I'm moving forward. Negative, came the reply. Too hot for non-combat personnel. She keyed the mic harder. I'm Ranger qualified and combat experienced. You want this gear fixed? I need hands-on. A pause, then Morrison's voice. Control, this is 7 actual. Let her through. She's part of my team. She grabbed her kit and sprinted into the chaos smoke. Shouts, the crack of sim rounds snapping past. Alpha Team was pinned but holding perimeter. She dove into the breach point, ripping open weapons and components like a surgeon under fire. Dust and fine grit had clogged every mechanism. She cleaned, swapped, reassembled. 4 minutes later, Alpha Team, weapons are green, breach is live. Go. They pushed through, the op back on track. When the mission wrapped, every objective was met, every hostage rescued. And Maya? She'd just proved herself under the kind of pressure you couldn't fake. 3 days later, the after-action briefing was packed with brass. Admiral Jessica Parker called her name, made her stand, and told the room she was being promoted to staff sergeant, effective immediately, and assigned to a classified special operations unit deploying in 60 days. Morrison found her after. Told you were exceptional, he said. Hayes clapped her on the shoulder. You're one of us now. The rest of the team gathered around, offering quiet congratulations, the kind that really mattered. 72 hours later, she had orders in hand. Within months, she'd be stepping off a helicopter in a high-altitude combat zone, responsible for keeping some of America's most elite warriors armed and alive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. As she shouldered her gear and walked toward her next mission, Maya knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning.